back to the show. We're getting started with security. And it's vital to the success of any society, security, whether you're talking economy, you're talking education, agriculture, all of that sort of rises and falls on the state of security. And this is a challenge we have talked about for so long on the show. So this morning, we're doing a deeper dive. We're joined by two gentlemen at this moment on the show. Lecturer, School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London, Dr. Fola Aino, and Mr. Chetan Wanze, who's a founder, SBM Intelligence, research consultant, focused on West African politics and economy. Also joining us from London. Gentlemen, welcome to the Morning Brief. All right, I'll just get started with Mr. Mwanze and just maybe get a sense of how far you think we have come, particularly for this administration of President Bola Tinubu, the collaboration or otherwise with state governments and, of course, the local councils as well. Is this cup half full for you or half empty, particularly with security? And this is for you, as I said, Mr. Mwanze.
Good morning again. I think it's a case of cup half empty. If you look at the current state of national security, it's very important to state that we don't have any security challenge that the Nigerian state has resolved definitively in the past decade. Definitely in the past half decade. Instead, we have new security challenges that are coming up. More often than not, what we get is a spirited operation against the threats, and then a failure to sustain that campaign after the immediate threat has been removed or has been suppressed. I think suppressed is a better word. We don't look at root causes. We don't have. We just firefight and move on. So for a lot of days, what this means is that the threat simply changes locations, taking advantage of one of the things that is really worrying within the Nigerian context, which is that we have a lot of ungoverned spaces. Take, for example, the Lakwara group. It's really... This group has been made the headlines a lot last year, but this group has been around at least since 2017 and has simply changed locations. So that is the problem, where somewhere along the security chain of command, somewhere along the security line, something has broken in terms of communications, in terms of cooperation. There seems to be a lot of people operating in silos, and basically we have a lot of disagreements over stuff. That needs to change if we're to solve the security problems in the country.
Right. Let me go to Dr. Fola Aino. I started with you, Cheta, because, well, SBM usually gives out security intel and all of those data regarding security, particularly in the West African sub-region. But Dr. Fola Aino, you have, perhaps you bring in another view to this, but perhaps another international perspective on this, also big on the academic side of things. And I wonder for you, do you take, for example, the CDS saying that insurgency ends this year? If you look at that statement on face value, does it sound like the usual rhetoric, or it looks like something that is indeed possible, or something just to give people hope that we're working on it?
Thank you very much. Good morning once again. First of all, let me begin by saying that with insecurity, there's so many factors to consider. Right? In the case of Nigeria, most of the insurgency the country is currently being confronted with has its roots primarily around four key dimensions. The first would be to consider the political dimensions. The second would be the socio-economic dimensions. And then, of course, the third would be the environmental-related dimensions. And then the fourth, you have the ethnic/religious dimensions. So if we go to the political dimensions, the issues which are around underlying root causes of the political dimensions have to do with issues bordering on weak institutions, poor governance, issues of marginalization, and on and on and on. And then for the socio-economic dimensions, you want to consider things like poverty, inequality, unemployment, lack of jobs. It's just one of the things that drive people, to pick up arms against the state in the first instance. And then you have, again, the environmental dimensions. When you think about climate change and the impact it's having on conflicts, scarce resources, when you think of the farmer-header crisis, and how some of these things have driven the conflict we've seen in parts of the country. Again, you can see also that there's another dimension to this. And then, of course, last but not least is the religious dimensions and the ethnic dimensions also referred to. These are some of the things that have been in existence historically in certain parts of the country that have led to communal clashes. So just to summarize, when you say that insecurity would come to an end this year, or rather insurgency would come to an end, you have to consider all these other factors and to see what measures have been put in place to curtail these factors so that you don't have a repeat of this circle all over again. So as long as these things haven't been squarely addressed, these underlying risk factors that push people into insurgencies, all right, then assuming that insurgency would come to an end this year might be, a far call. All right, but that's not to say that it cannot be abated, it cannot be reduced. In fact, data and evidence has shown that insecurity has significantly, security situation has significantly improved as a result of some of the recent gains the military has made. Especially in the areas of the northwest and of course in the northeastern region. So yes, most of the time we hear about issues of insurgency, kidnappings, and all these things. But that's also not to displace the important contributions the military has played, in helping to address some of these issues. But my point is, there is no one-size-fits-all approach. You cannot address insecurity simply by using overly military tactics, kinetic approaches. What will happen then is that you have the insurgencies begin to evolve, all right, and they will drag on. So what's most important is to address counterinsurgency using non-kinetic approaches, going back to those earlier things I mentioned, addressing those underlying root causes, at the same time integrating military solutions to them, all right? That's the way to address insecurity, as against an overly militaristic approach.
All right. So let's bring in Professor Khalifa Dikwa is a social commentator, public affairs analyst. Khalifa Dikwa joining us via Zoom from Kaduna. Prof, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Prof, for coming on the program.
Yes, thank you.
We're doing an assessment of the security situation of the country. And maybe you will help us paint your own picture of what the security situation has been in terms of gains and challenges. We see the CDS is making very bold and ambitious statement. If you see the dailies today saying that terrorism and insurgency will end or should...
Electricity is the most important aspect.
Just hold on, Prof. Just hold on, Prof. Just a moment, Prof. Let me just land on my thoughts so they can take it all together. So the CDS has talked about the fact that, look, all of this should end, talking to his men in 2025. It's an ambitious statement. So maybe give us your perspective and what you see from where you sit and what the possibilities are. Then we'll go to the nitty-gritty, Prof.
My honor, that as long as the foot soldiers, yes, Geoffrey, as long as they do not sit on the tail of the devil that has been blocking for Nigeria from getting its basic infrastructure, it will continue to be just tomorrow, next year, and so on. We've been talking about global, what do you call them, goal, whatever it is, and we're not getting it there. Enough of promises. We need something concrete on this. Nigerians are fed up. Nigeria is a great country that shouldn't be toyed with. In terms of, because we know that there are countries that are not interested in having Nigeria to lead the continent, having had peace in Liberia, Sierra Leone, they were envious of Nigeria. And therefore, it is up to Nigerian leadership, the actors, to step up, to stamp their feet and say, enough of this, we have to fix our country. And therefore, Nigeria has abdicated its leadership role for over 10 years now. Since the Buhari, 8 years of Buhari was dormant, empty, nothing. Completely, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was not working at all. And today, again, this Tinubu government is not doing better. Apart from just doing things that annoy our people. Nigeria is the leader of this continent. The entire continent is looking up to Nigeria. for leadership.
So,
for goodness sake, let us have it for all. Security and energy. We don't allow anybody, any financial institution from anywhere in the world to dictate to us. Nigerians are capable people. They have been helping the economies of other countries. Why not our own?
So, Prof, just a moment, Prof. Just a moment, Prof. By the way, Prof is joining us via phone. Prof, are you saying that energy security is the biggest challenge we have in terms of that leads to insecurity? I want to understand what you're saying.
Yes, by energy, I say energy for electricity, energy even for communication, and then energy to get water, all the things that we have in terms of transportation and security, physical security that we have them now with different names. The media gives them different names to make them big, and it has already become an industry of itself, Geoffrey.
Okay, Prof, let's take it to the other guest. Mr. Nwanze, let's bring it to you. You heard what Prof says, I guess. In your own definition of success in terms of improving the state of Nigeria's security, what will be your definition of success?
My definition of success will be bringing down the absolute numbers. I think it's a bit of a travesty in each of the previous 4 quarters, and one of the things that my organization does is track numbers, especially via media reports. In each of the previous 4 quarters, the numbers for people killed via all sorts of security incidents in the country 2,308, 2,371, 2,971, and 1,859 respectively. I think it's important to put that in perspective, because the academic definition of war indicates people who are killed in violent, basically violent incidents involving 2 armed groups, when you have over 1,000 people within a calendar year. So these numbers already this is approaching 10,000 already. So that would indicate that there's a sort of war situation. And this is borne by the fact that the Nigerian army is deployed in all 36 states on some sort of combat operation or the other. These are things that in a normal environment, it should be the police doing it. We need to change that paradigm. And I think that the key thing that is missing from a lot of the conversation, what is driving this is access to justice. There are so many groups in Nigeria, within the borders of Nigeria, who feel that they have been unjustly treated, and as a result have taken up one form of arm or the other against the states. We should be asking ourselves, why is this so? And what can be done to make everybody trust the Nigerian state once again? That trust has been broken, and it's been broken for a long time. It predates this administration, it predates the previous administration, it predates even that previous administration. People have been taking up arms against the Nigerian state in large numbers, at least since 2003.
Right.
What can be done to bring this to an end? And until we have these honest and, I must admit, painful conversations, especially on the sectarian bits, the ethnic and religious, because there's a lot of sense of grievance and injustice within the country. We need to sort that. We need to sort that urgently.
Well, Cheta, let me quickly come in here and get your that data correct. Comparatively now, when you say 10,000, does that mean it has gotten better or worse? Maybe give us that data in context.
It's gotten worse. So compared to 2023, it got slightly worse, and slightly worse also from 2022. We publish these figures quarterly. So I think it's important to point out that the figures that I read out are for Q4 2023, Q1 2024, Q2 2024, and Q3 2024. So in Q3 2024, at 1,859 media reported deaths, I must say, which usually are an undercount, it went down significantly. That was the best quarter. Q3 2023 was the best quarter in the Q3 2024 was the best quarter in the previous 4. However, if you look at it in terms of the 4 quarters combined, the 4 quarters that I just read out were worse than the 4 quarters preceding, which in turn were worse than the 4 quarters preceding.
So do you disagree with Dr. Aino when he says that the security situation has improved then?
I disagree. I disagree. We track kidnappings. We track media reports. One of the things that I think has become very dangerous is the fact that many of these things have become people have just gotten used to them. For example, the Punch yesterday had a huge story about kidnaps. This is something that we track very diligently, and it just shows a spread. The kidnap industry in Nigeria has become very democratized. That is something that we need to have a painful conversation about how to stop. And I think it goes back to, aside from access to justice, economics. We have a huge unemployment problem, especially with youth unemployment, and this is making criminal activities very attractive to people.
Interesting. So, Dr. Aino, naturally, I want to get your thoughts on this. So he's speaking to the figures now. So when you say it has improved, I imagine you say the glass half full. In what sense do you say? Because this says data says otherwise.
So if you recall, in my comment, I had mentioned that in recent times, and he also just confirmed that, okay, with the last figures, it had dropped to about 1,000 plus thereabout. So you can see from the previous quarters, okay, there has been an improvement, okay, up to less than 2,000, which is over just about 1,000 plus. So the question then is what might be responsible, okay, for this slight improvement we have seen, even if it's a decline by 10, by 20, that in itself is still an improvement, all right? What we should be more focused on is what we can do to consolidate on the improvements that have been made. And if you look at the Northwest, for instance, you will see that in recent times, the military has stepped up, okay, its campaigns against the head of banditry groups. There have been several decapitations of the leadership of some banditry groups, okay, which has also led to some improvements in that area, in that region in particular. There's also been significant air campaigns, okay, successes on air campaigns conducted by the Nigerian Air Force, okay, which in many ways have also, helps to improve the situation on the ground. But when you look at security holistically, all right, that you may be getting certain results in one aspect also, and you're not getting results in other aspects, does not mean that put together, okay, there isn't, an improvement. All right. Also, something to focus on is to think about, the improvements in terms of addressing some of the socio-economic concerns you could have led to these issues in the first instance. Let's not forget that Nigeria as a country hasn't conducted, a census in a very long time. The last time a census was conducted was in 2006. So we have higher numbers, okay, more people, okay, who are in the Nigerian economy right now than before. All right. So if, for instance, some people who were naturally susceptible to insecurity, okay, are less so now, you may not be able to see that number tangentially because you have an increase in the population right now, okay? So there's some regions in the country that, yes, are still being confronted with insecurity, but at the same time, there are some others that have received relief, okay, from the insecurity situation in the country. And I'll give you another example. A couple of years back, there were some territories, especially in Borno State, that were under the control and command of Boko Haram, some local government areas. And these territories were eventually reclaimed by the military, okay, which brought about succor and relief to the inhabitants of these regions. Now, we wouldn't say, for instance, that we haven't received, that didn't amount to any form of improvements in security. That has definitely amounted to improvements in security, all right? But put together, while the numbers may be not as much as we would have expected them to be, I would say definitely that we are making some progress, and this progress needs to be consolidated upon.
All right, Mr. Aino, let's take it to Prof. Prof, one of the angles I would like you to speak to in tackling the insecurity or the security challenges of our country, especially the North, has to do with military-civilian relationship and how we can improve on it, because I'm talking based on what happened in Sokoto. When that bombing occurred or when that operation was carried out, and Lakurawa insurgents or terrorists were killed, there was a back and forth between the government and the military. The military has said, look, if you accommodate terrorists, then it could be a collateral damage. The government came out to say, look, these are innocent villagers. And then there was a clarity later when the General Buba came out to say that it was secondary explosion, that their target was on Lakurawa and their cache, so the cache explosion led to the death of civilians. It was that was also a subject of argument here and there. So how do we improve on civilian-military relations? Because even the military acknowledges the fact that they can't do it alone.
Absolutely. Geoffrey, the military now, they are tired, you know. They are tired of the endless thing that they don't see. And the CDS knows himself that he was the theater commander over there in Maiduguri. We had our own relation with the civilian JTF, where parents will not allow anybody to have a gun or anything. Parents were reporting them, and that even only in the rural areas where the bandits and so on, the insurgents were taking villagers at gunpoint to sell them certain things and so on. We told them, the military then, that the villagers have no choice than to follow them. The way it is happening in Sokoto, look, security is security, like a human body. What affects the fingernail will affect the entire nation. We shouldn't be talking about south, north, and so on. Security is security, but it has to end. And that technology is the best way to do it. We can have the drones and so on. Why is it we are going for back and forth? As if the different agencies, the Air Force, the Army, and so on, from time to time are showing, playing gymnastics in the eyes of the world when we are losing sacred lives in our people. One life loss is very important. Talk less of having 30, 40 in Sokoto, in eastern Sokoto, wherever. It is not the same as in Borno at that time. At that time, we had the full cooperation. The civilians cooperated with the military, and the military was open to us. From time to time, I was even invited there to give me a lecture on the certain conspiracies of foreign countries about how they plant insurgencies in the mineral-rich countries, and they continued all over. In Africa, wherever you have insurgency, check. Whether it is Congo, Liberia, Sierra Leone, it is about the resources. Why is it that we cannot sit down and say, perhaps write a petition, even the European Union or United Nations, that look, there are certain countries that we cannot challenge. We can see their planes, those things are coming, they are landing and taking things, and sometimes they even bring mercenaries. They kill at large, and then the following day they will say either Boko Haram or Lakurawa. These are names concocted in order to distract people. Why should we even give them name in order to make them important? Our military used to be one of the three most applauded military in the continent. Why is it not now capable to do it within the house? At least I guess the challenge that the political actors, some of them, I would say all of them, some of them are also playing to it because it has money that cannot be accounted for. A lot of money that will come out, and then some of them will share. The same thing with foreign financial institutions where they force our countries to take loans just for sharing. And the 40% that arrives the country is not in terms of cash, in terms of material, where the countries have no choice. Each time they ask you to do one reform or the other, you do it, and then there will come another one. Imagine next time you will also hear about retrenchment, and that kind of thing annoys the youth. When the youth are annoyed, they are likely to sit down and start discussing. They are likely to get addicted to drugs, and they are likely to go into any violent crime. This is the kind of thing that they keep annoying people. I said it on channels. Everybody, the entire world said, 3 days after the withdrawal, the sudden withdrawal of the subsidy, without putting in place the basic infrastructure like what we call them refinery and so on, how to transport and so on. It was sudden, and I knew, and I said it that this will never happen. And in a democracy, it is the choice of the people that matters, not the choice of the leaders. Even if the leaders are 100% sure that their own is good, but they have to listen to the people who voted for them. Okay. And therefore, they will never stop. They will never stop asking for more reforms that will annoy the people of this country. It is up to all politicians and academics and so on. And it is high time we start jotting down the names of voodoo economists who are on the media, in the media all over, justifying one thing or the other, that tomorrow will be good. We've been waiting for that tomorrow. Many years. It has not happened.
All right, Prof. I can see when you make your comment, I see you draw those nexus, and it's quite important just to tell you that insecurity doesn't just happen. Things trigger it. Let me take it to Mr. Nwanze. And Mr. Aina and Mr. Nwanze, both of you will take this in turns, but let's start with Mr. Nwanze. Let's talk about part of what Prof has mentioned, what I consider the economics of insecurity, both by institutional and non-institutional elements. 2.2 trillion from May 2023 to April 2024 was reported to have been paid as ransom. How does that strike you?
That was an MPS report that was published last month. My organization has been publishing such data on that for 4 years now. We update it annually, and the one thing that I will point out is that so in our report we always put the caveat that our data is incomplete because the most kidnapped victims, or many kidnapped victims, do not disclose figures. One thing, unfortunately, the police especially are not usually very honest about whether ransoms are paid. So I will say off the bat that the MDS is in a better position because they are the legally statutory body that can see a lot of these cash flows. So I wasn't surprised that their figures were a lot higher than what we have published. But the key thing for me is that every year since we started publishing the report, The Economics of Nigeria's Kidnapping Industry, the figures paid out in ransoms have gone up. And then the NBS basically essentially validated what we were saying by publishing figures that are way higher than what we published in our last report by a factor of 10. I think that's very important to note. More and more people, again, is the language very, very important. Kidnapping has become an industry in Nigeria for the simple reason that we have a huge unemployment problem that we haven't taken care of. And in parallel with that, or in tandem with that, we have a huge problem of, like I used that expression before, I'm using it again, lack of access to justice. A lot of people who get involved in a lot of these crimes get away with it. And as a result of the fact that they do get away with it, it's becoming more and more attractive to more people, ergo more insecurity. So we can't pretend that this thing is not a huge problem. It's getting worse. And like with many things, there's a flow and ebb. There's a reason that things may have in Q3 of last year, that things may have come down in terms of number of people killed, but the same data shows us that there were more incidents in Q3 than in Q2. So more incidents, fewer people killed. That's a good thing. More incidents is not a good thing. I think it's important to point that out. Again, more incidents is not a good thing. Fewer people killed is a good thing. But if you want to be cynical, you could say that the kidnappers, because a good majority of the violent crime in Nigeria now is related to kidnapping. So if you want to be cynical, you could say that the kidnappers are getting more efficient. That is not a good thing.
All right, let's take it to Mr. Aino. The same question, Mr. Aino, that I asked Mr. Nwanze.
Thank you very much. Let me quickly just pick up from the last thing Mr. Nwanze mentioned. So again, if you have more incidents, it will also be a pointer to the fact that the perpetrators of these crimes are only becoming more desperate, all right? And also the fact, as you've already alluded, that we're having lesser fatalities also could be a pointer to the fact that, again, insecurity has slightly improved, because it means that the security agencies are doing something a lot better, okay, than they were before, which has in some ways accounted for why we're seeing lesser fatalities. Now, to go back to the question around the economics of insecurity, yes, there's a significant economic dimension to all of this. Let's be reminded also that organized crime is not only funded by kidnappings for ransom. There are also other means of funding. Also, there's fundings that come from taxation. Okay, so for instance, Boko Haram okay, in some areas where they have operated in the past, are known to have, exploited inhabitants by collecting some forms of taxation, okay. There's also another new dimension which hasn't received so much attention in the media. It has to do with the use of cryptocurrency, okay, by terrorist organizations all across the world, to finance organized crime. Also, in some instances, there's external funding, okay, from broader organizations. So, for instance, ISWAP, which is affiliated to ISIS core, has received financial support also from ISIS core. Okay, so again, huge dimension to financing of organized crime activities. I think what's most important to focus attention on is curbing, illicit financial inflow. Okay, that has given insurgent groups or terrorist organizations, the fuel that they require to perpetuate their crimes. Okay, and this can be done through monitoring and tightening some of these loopholes, okay, that have been identified. I know the NFIU is doing a significant job in this regards. Okay, the Office of National Security Advisor as well is doing a lot of work in this regards. Yes, again, as I mentioned earlier, there's a need for more consolidation. Okay, and I think it's also important that where progress has been made, we recognize this progress. Okay, and we, give our security agencies the encouragement and the support that they require, because these are people who are making significant efforts daily, not discounting the fact that insecurity may still continue. Yes, but also a lot of work has been done also in plugging some of these loopholes and in preventing access to funding that drives the activities of these terrorist organizations. This needs to be consolidated for more, and effort in this regard also needs to be encouraged and supported.
Right. It's quite interesting, this conversation, how data is there, but there's still different inferences to that data. Quite interesting. But one thing is clear: this conversation is geared towards resolving the insecurity we've seen. So 2 quick points as we wind down. And Dr. Aina, quickly, I want to get your thoughts on this. A lot of people saw the IGP coming off a private jet over the weekend. And they started raising questions. Why does the IGP have a private jet, or why does the police force have a private jet when we have police vans that say they don't have petrol, or, the police stations that say they don't have, the basic infrastructure? So is that something that you also found interesting? Again, I should say it belongs to the MPF. We've seen previous IGPs fly this, but is it right for you, particularly in the face of funding?
I think it's very important also to stress here, that having a private jet, shouldn't be as much an issue of focus right now. The most important thing we should be thinking about is how the police or the security agencies are allocating resources to tackling insecurity. All right. If it's something that was just bought a day before he had to appear at that occasion, that may raise red flags. For all we know, that jet must have existed long before he came into office. Okay, so we should be very careful to put things into perspective and not focus on less important things as such. Okay, what's most important is to hold the police accountable. Okay, and how it has allocated resources from the budget it has presented. Okay.
As I said, the jets, we've seen previous IGPs fly that same private jet, but this is specific to funding for the police. Do you know how much it costs to service a private jet? And for those people who raised eyebrows, said it would be great to channel those funds to fund or to fuel operational vehicles. But clearly, this is a debate that is still ongoing. So let me come to Prof now. Prof, as we begin to wind down, you raised some vital issues that are not security related, but they are linked to security. And I know they always say that the North is not homogeneous anymore. So it's always tricky to say, what does the North think about this, or this is the North's position. But from where you sit, from the conversations you've had, do you think your section of the North is happy with the way President Tinubu is handling security, and by extension, how the governors are also chiming in on security, Prof?
Actually, it is the governors who have been doing better, because right from the times of President Buhari, the way the governors, particularly the governor of Borno State, Professor Babagana Zulum, had been handling it. Today, the people were able even to farm, and now they are back. The IDPs have been closed and so on. In the other parts of the world, IDPs were never closed down. And let me say this, the other time I was with you, I said this is perhaps for another day, that this insurgency, insecurity as well, had been in the cooler. 1984, when I was a student in Paris, there I saw it. They were waiting for an opportunity to launch in order to pull down Nigeria, to humiliate Nigeria, and eventually it was somebody we knew as a leader who opened the floodgate to humiliate our armed forces at that time. Even the weapons were moved from the north down to south and Lagos, and some of them exploded and killed scores. The enemies are within the nation, and therefore the constitution itself remove the powers of the local people, not only local government areas that we have now got, thankfully, from President Tinubu, but the traditional system that had anybody knew somebody, the traditional right from the word. People who are strangers, who were playing funny and so on, were even nipped in the bud. And this is not the same situation today. Why is it that we cannot fix our own country? Nigeria is a great country. We cannot afford to go into to be refugees in other nations.
Right.
Imagine this kind of a thing that had a visa. Was it not the same agreement that was signed in Kigali, not to have visas and so on for the entire continent to trade within? It is now cheaper to trade with outsiders outside the continent rather than coming through some brothers. Are we not the same blood in Africa that we were split in 1884 by the Oyibo people at the Berlin Conference? We have to know our history now, Coyote. The thing is, the politicians have not been able to bring together the academics, those who know things, in order to show them. To them, it is the permanent interest. It is about making money. Making money is not enough, because today we can blacklist them, and then the real people, the wise politicians, think of the next generation. But the bad politicians will always think of the next election.
Prof, that is why we have brought... Prof, that is why we have brought you and other academics on the show to give us a benefit of that, would I say, intelligence, insight, experience. But we'll have to thank you so much. And it's good to, well, hear you and see you again, Professor Khalifa Dikwa, social commentator, public affairs analyst. Thank you so much for your time. And let me just say Happy New Year to you, sir.
Happy New Year to you. You have grown taller and fatter,
Thank you so much, Prof. I'll also be speaking with Dr. Fola, lecturer, School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London. Thank you for those perspectives, Dr. Waina, and putting some of those things in context, as well as Chetan Wadze, founder, SBM Intelligence, research consultant, focus on West African politics and economy. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. I will certainly be having this conversation in the coming weeks, but wish you the very best, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year, everyone.
We'll take a moment now on the show. When we return, we'll speak to two amazing ladies. Their stories will definitely inspire you. So stay with us right here till the morning brief.